and welcome to emilykatemadethis. I am Emily Kate and I'm coming to you from Berlin in Germany. This is, I think, episode 30. Not bad, not bad. And I think it might actually be a shorter one than usual because I don't feel like I've got very much to show you, but who knows, maybe it'll change. So this, for anybody new, this is a knitting and sometimes sewing podcast, knitcast, vlogcast, whatever. I actually do have some sewing. I wasn't sure if I would show it, but maybe at the very end. I will add timestamps below if you want to skip forward or come back to it or anything like that. So let's get to it. Finished object / what I'm wearing is this. This is the Vintersol Pullover sweater jumper by Jennifer Steingass. I purchased this pattern in 2020 and then tried to cast it on, completely messed it up. It was, backstory, I learned to knit in 2020 because I wanted to knit one of Jennifer Steingass's patterns. I purchased this and then it had this mixture, like a hybrid yoke. So you cast on all of these stitches and then knit up using a provisional cast on, and then you knit down. That did not work for me, and anytime I've done a provisional cast on they didn't work for me. So after 2-3 years of procrastinating and not doing it because of the hybrid yoke, I just thought, why don't I just knit from the top down? Every other jumper works that way. Why wouldn't this? So I did, and it worked. So the actual pattern has like a rolled, I think it's a rolled hem, but I don't generally like how they sit on me, probably because of the way I'm knitting, but they tend to get a bit too loose. I can hear noises. My husband's not here today, but people are outside of my front door. It's unnerving me. Anyway, I think I just made the necks too big whenever I tried to do that. So I just stuck with my usual rib. I only did about 5 or 6 rows of this. And then I followed the pattern, but just kind of reversed engineered it. I'll be honest, I did a really silly mistake at the beginning and I could not figure out why it wasn't working. And because it didn't have, I don't know how to explain it. The pattern obviously decreases as you go up and I had to increase, but the chart was smaller and I was basically just confused. I can't explain it at all, but it took me a while and then I figured out how to do it. So I did it. I did unfortunately mess up at one point and I printed out the pattern, and I have a black and white printer, and the actual pattern, all of this, oh, I haven't even stood up to show you. Ta-da! So in the pattern, all of this is the same colour. So when I cast on and I changed onto this colour here and didn't change onto the correct colour, I just kept going with this green, and I'd done maybe 3 rows. Then I looked at my piece of paper and I had a small pencil line on it saying this should be purple, and I hadn't seen it. Oops. And I know that most of you are happy to rip back, but I just don't like it. I think I'd be fine ripping back if it was like crochet where you can just pull the yarn and it takes you back and it's all grand. But having to go through and individually pick up the stitches to then drop back, or just rip it out and hope that you're able to pick up the stitches, is so stressful for me. It takes so long. So it was only one. I did rip back the 2 rows that I had, but I couldn't do all, I think it was 4 rows I had to rip back. So I actually just duplicate stitched these. And although they are a little bit thicker, obviously, because it's 2 layers of Lettlopi, I don't mind because it's right on the top. It kind of looks like part of the pattern, like the flower. I think I might have some puckering. I'm not really sure. I don't know, you tell me. possibly here, but equally it could just be the fact that there's quite a lot of yarn behind there. I don't care, to be honest. A lot of people say I've got puckering on my jumper, and I'm looking at it and thinking, where is that? And I'm doing that for myself too, so just curious if I have it there or not. Don't know. What else? Obviously, as I said, it's Lettlopi. The colours are these colours, and I purchased, as I said, in 2020 when I learnt to knit, so I had no idea how much yarn I needed. Despite the fact that it's written in the pattern, I seem to read it and panic and think that's probably not enough. I definitely need 2 balls of like this purple. I probably used about 20 grams, maybe less. So I've got almost 2 full balls of this. Because I want 2 of them instead of just the one. This one is colour 1705. Can't remember the actual name, probably fuchsia or something like that. And it's beautiful. I'm hoping the colours and everything is coming out because this room is completely dark and I'm just sitting in front of the window. Because when I put that light on, it just gives these weird shadows and everything changes colour. Hopefully this works. Then the green. This one is 9421. I think this was celery, I think. Then the white is obviously just white, so 0051, and the grey is 0054. So they are the colours that I used, and I love it. Oops, just dropping that. What did I do? I made the sleeves a little bit shorter. They're not quite bracelet length, as you can see. There's a bracelet, but I probably could have done another inch. I just didn't. I don't know why. It's not like I don't like sleeves. I just seem to get so impatient by the very end that my sleeves just get shorter. But I'm still totally fine with its length. And it is kind of cropped. Well, very cropped, I would say. There's my waist, so that long. I did think about doing the rib in green, but I actually just preferred that it just turned into the grey. Otherwise it just brings all your attention to a big green bar around my waist or around my wrist. I also didn't do the extra colour work that's on the waist and I think also on the sleeves. Maybe one jumper in the future I will do that, but sometimes I just want the attention to be here and not distributed all around. So yes, that's this one. I really like it. I'm really happy that I finally did it and finally just got over this fear of not following the pattern exactly. So that was exciting. I also learnt how to knit a colourwork pattern backwards, so that was exciting. Anything else? Don't know. Oh, I did size 2. My mum knitted me a Yggdrasil pullover and she did size 3. I did measure her gauge because it came out really small, like really tight. She has incredibly tight stitches when she knits. When she visited, I tried to knit a row on her, like she did a square. I tried to show her how to do the Norwegian purl stitch. Oh my goodness, her stitches are like strangling this knitting needle. There's no way we have the same gauge. But she did a size 3 for me and it's quite stiff and there's a lot of space, but simultaneously like the rest of the body is really tight. So I wasn't sure what size to go for. I know that I do have a tighter gauge than the yarn suggests. Like I believe Lettlopi is supposed to be about 18 stitches on 4mm needles, and I always get 20. It seems to be if I knit anything that suggests 18 stitches, I will always get 20. So that was the case. I haven't measured my gauge on this. I believe I did maybe on the grey. At some point I did just check it a little bit, but as I've said before, I can never actually see my stitches, and I don't really know how to get my tape measure to go around with the yoke. It's fine on like this part because it's just flat, but having 4 inches or 10 centimeters and moving around, it just, if it goes off by half a stitch or 1 stitch, that completely changes your idea of what the gauge is. So it fits, so that's the main thing. I could probably have done size 1 because when I sit down there is quite a lot of material, but equally if it brought it in by 2-3 inches then it would be really tight, and I would have been very nervous when knitting it that it wouldn't fit. So maybe I'll try one in size 1 in the future, but I'm grand with this fit. It's funnier when I sit down because it just bulks a bit here, but equally I get the feeling like clothing is going to move around. If it was skin tight and negative ease, it wouldn't, but I'm not knitting that, so why would I expect it to behave the same way? And it's obviously much more denser fabric, so yeah, as I said, love it. I'm happy with puckering, I don't care. I'm really happy that I made it and that it's really pretty. I've seen several different versions of it, and I was inspired by one that I saw on Ravelry, and I'll try to remember to link it. I basically saw this pattern and didn't really think much about it. Then I saw this other woman's version and was like, oh, that's the one, that's it. So that's why I made it like this. This was not me being clever and doing it myself. But it's funny when you change the colours. I think Nora from Studio Nora, she's done it and it kind of looks like trees. But then when I added this, it looks like flowers. And other people can look like mountains or fern leaves. Or it's really fun to play with colour. Right, I'll have a little drink and then I'll talk about my next one. Whoops, do not eat my plant. I was supposed to look up how to pronounce, excuse me, let's just move this chair. It's not me making those noises, it's my chair. I wanted to look up how to pronounce this in Swedish and I completely forgot. I'm just going to go with saying Yggdrasil because it's literally how it looks. This is by Anna. Again, I forgot. I believe this SJ sound is like a H and not Sjö, which is how I would say it. It's like Sjösvärd, Sjösvärd. I know that umlauts on the A are pronounced differently in Swedish than German, so it's probably not pronounced like that at all. Anyway, this is one of my Make 9 projects. Unfortunately, it's not for me because I do have the yarn for it to make myself one. But if you have been watching here for a while or you watched my Vlogmas videos, you'll know that my husband's jumper is no more and I'm turning it into a skirt. It's going to happen. And so he now has no jumper, so we've cast him on this one. Ooh, don't fall yarn. It's looking so small, but I have put it on him and it does fit. It has 0 ease, which he says is fine, and when I put it on him, it doesn't look like a dress like the last one. The last one I was looking thinking, oh my gosh, because at the back it was just like, there was so much fabric on that last one and I was pretending it was fine, but it really wasn't fine. So this one sits a lot nicer on him. I have to put this yarn somewhere. I'll just show you the yarn and then I can put it aside. This is the yarn I'm using because I am obsessed with Sweden. Obsessed with Sweden, it's ridiculous. I haven't even been to Sweden and I just want all the Swedish things. I watch all the Swedish YouTubes, get all the Swedish yarn. knit the Swedish patterns, just, yeah, loving Sweden. So yeah, this is by Järbo, Svensk ull, and it's pure Swedish wool. It's the same, well, not quite the same. I think Lettlopi's 50 grams is mind god, 50 grams is 100 meters, and this one is 100 grams, 180 meters. So this one knits up tighter for me. So this is roughly 20, oh, and I've dropped the yarn, 20 stitches, but sometimes 21, and I haven't blocked it yet. I don't think it would change because I did a swatch last year on the orange rust colour that I purchased to make my version, and it didn't change at all in blocking. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But it has come out significantly smaller because the pattern suggests 18 stitches in 10 centimeters, and I'm getting 20, 21. So it was supposed to give me a 41-inch bust, and it's giving more like a 37, 38 inch. But yeah, I've put it on him and he says it's fine. And he's not being polite. He's said, nope, this is good. So we're going with it. The thing I really like about this is the braid. I'm just slightly nervous if I've done the braid correctly, but there's no one to tell me off if I haven't, so hopefully that will focus. It's kind of just going into shadow. Oh, maybe there. And I have not figured out how one can knit cables without a needle, because this one isn't like pulling 3 aside and you can hold them. It's more like fiddly. You move one here, move one back, move one forward. And yeah, I could not do that without a cable needle, but it's definitely slowed me down. I realised I can only do about 2.5 centimeters in about 2 hours, which is insane. So yesterday I knitted for roughly 2 hours, and this yellow marker is where I started, and about 2 hours later I knitted that far. And this is like a thick yarn. I'm pretty sure when I knitted this one it did not take that long. I finished this in maybe 2.5, 3 weeks. I didn't knit on it like only on this, but this was fast. And my festive yoke pullover was knitted in sport weight, and I was getting through those sleeves like super fast. This one is so slow. I have to assume it's the cable that's slowing me down, because there was one, and well, that's a lie. There was one here and one here, and now that they're starting to go down the sides. I don't know, that must be what's slowing me down, because it's taking me so long. My husband's now said, don't worry, just knit it, finish it whenever you like, because I had said, I'll knit it in time for January or like February when it's still cold. It's been snowing, it's really cold, and there's no way he's getting this anytime soon. I've got the colour work on the bottom to do, and 2 sleeves for his really, really long arms. So it's probably going to be his Christmas present for next year. I'm going to continue knitting on it, I won't put it aside, but my hopes for it being done really fast are dead. I also wanted to say that I tested out a new technique and it worked. I've got some interchangeable needles, and instead of doing, I've got hair on my nose and it's tickling me. Ooh. Instead of doing the short rows with the same needles and getting this horrible rowing out that I often get, I swapped out the needles that would be on my purl side for a smaller needle. What are you? I think these are 4mm needles. So when I did the short rows, I changed to a 3.5 or a 3.25, whichever one I had handy, and did the pearl part of the short row on that one. So then you don't get rowing out to the point where I can't even tell which is the front and which is the back anymore. The short rows they're not like really obvious yet. I don't know why, but I can't quite tell which one's the front and which one's the back, and they seem to measure the same length, which can't be right. But equally, if you just slightly pull it when you're measuring, then it will change the measurements. So just gonna see what happens when it's finished. Then I can hold the bottom of the sweater and it should drop the neckline, and I should be able to see which one is the front and which is the back. But yeah, the rowing out was cured, so that's good. And I'm going to use this technique on my future vintage knitting projects because they're knitted flat the majority of the time, and shawls, and I tend to have these enormous versions of things that shouldn't be that big, simply because the pearl row has made my gauge a lot bigger. Well, not the gauge big, you know what I mean. It makes the item bigger because my pearl is too loose and it changes the whole thing. So now, cured, I hope anyway. The things I've tried it on have worked, so that's very good. So that is it. This is the Lingonberry colour, by the way. And it's beautiful. I have one more project that I'm going to half show you. I had this idea that I might change up my channel just a bit, just for fun really, because the videos that I really enjoy from other people aren't always just knitting podcasts. It's like a project that they talk about, an individual project for that specific video. And I really like the idea of that. So I'm going to attempt to do that for my vintage knits, where I'll just go into more detail about the process from the beginning to the end, and then post a video about it. So I won't show you too much now, and I'll just give you a glimpse. I'm using some yarn that has completely thrown me. I don't understand what weight this is at all. I ordered it and it said it was DK / light worsted, but if you look at the meterage, I can't actually remember off the top of my head, but I remember looking up the meterage versus grams, and it's the equivalent of bulky, which is very strange. But the pattern I'm using required DK, but the needles were size 7.5mm, which is just enormous for a DK sweater. So I've gone down needle sizes so that it doesn't come out too big, and I'm assuming that the thicker yarn will just fill out the space. I can't explain myself. How do I do podcasts when I can't actually explain what I'm trying to show you? You'll understand when I show you eventually. But I bought this because I wanted to naturally dye it and I wanted DK wool. But then when it came and it was so thick, I just left it aside. But I've got really into this kind of colour in the last few months, and I thought I'd have a cardigan in it because then it would match a lot of my crazy coloured dresses and other items. So this is going to be a lace vintage pattern from estimated 1950s, but there's no date on it, so I don't know for sure that it's 1950s. We'll be going with it. And as I said, I'm just going to give you a quick glimpse. This is the back panel. It's not blocked and looks quite crazy. I've got completely tangled up. Okay, it's attached to the other piece. So, quick glimpse. And it's gone. So hopefully I can show you that relatively soon. I'm not exactly chugging my way through it that fast. Also the ingredients, no, not the recipe, the pattern. It's very vague. Like there's no gauge, there's no like instruction, like no abbreviation for what anything is. So their make one is actually a yarn over, and they just kind of leave you to it. And if you've followed for a while, you know I'm not very good at just being left to my own devices. I like to be told exactly what to do. And if I'm not and I'm confused, my brain is just like, no, don't do it, can't do it. Ah. So I'm trying. It does recommend to knit the button band separately and then attach it. But it doesn't tell you anything about it. Like, it doesn't tell you how long to knit it, it doesn't tell you how thick, it doesn't tell you how to attach it. And I watched a YouTube yesterday, but I can't remember who it was. But they said you need to knit the button band either smaller or longer than the pattern and then attach it. And I don't know, like, I basically don't know how to do it. So if you guys have knitted a button band separately and then attached it to flat pieces, please contact me on Instagram or down below and tell me what this trick is because I really don't want to mess that up. I'm currently on the sleeve, so I've done the back piece and one side piece, but I went wrong because I could not read the pattern. Like, it gave the weirdest explanation of what to do in a way that made zero sense. So I made it up and I'm not sure it worked, but I'll worry about that later. So instead of doing the other side piece, I'm knitting a sleeve, and then I'll knit the other sleeve, and by then maybe I would have figured out what to do with the other panel. Okay, so that is all my knitting. I'm going to briefly talk about a sewing project. So if you're not interested in sewing, then thank you for watching, and I'll see you on another video at some point. And if you are interested, I will show you. Okay, before I put it on, I want to just talk about it a little bit. I got an overlocker for Christmas. Half a present from myself, half a present from my parents-in-law. And I've been so scared to use it, to even try it. It was ridiculous. I don't usually get like freaked out by things to the point I won't try. It's usually I'm scared and then I just do it anyway. But I received the overlocker, looked at it lovingly, and then left it in the box for 2 weeks. Then on the 14th of January, I was like, no, I can do this. I can definitely do this. I took it out the box onto the floor. I was like, no, that's enough, that's enough. On the 15th of January, I was like, no, I can do this. It got onto my desk, and that was that. And then on the 17th, I looked up several different YouTubes on how to thread the machine, and I threaded it. I did a test piece. The adrenaline was so high. I actually thought it didn't work for a moment because I was so nervous. I didn't even put my foot on the pedal for it to work. But of course then I did, and it worked. That was enough. Done. And then yesterday I thought, this is ridiculous. You wanted to get this so you can make all these things and you're just scared. So I pulled out my scraps and had a look at what I had. And I've been in two mindsets about the results. In one way, I used scraps, that was the point. I tried out several techniques that I've wanted to learn, both sewing and overlocking and a vintage pattern. Like, not vintage, like probably 1980s vintage. And like, I did all these things, and theoretically they all worked fine. My overlocking definitely needs some tweaking, but I kind of hate it. And I don't know why. I've come to the realization that colour affects my mood way more than I actually realised. Like, I don't like wearing black. I always feel really rubbish when I wear black. I feel... It seems a bit cliche to say I feel moody and like miserable, because black isn't just miserable. It can be all kinds of emotions, but I just feel a bit when I wear black. So I often wear a lot of colour. And when I knitted my friend a baby cardigan, the colour was not the colour I expected. I was thinking more like, maybe more like this colour. And it came like a petrol, dark, bluey colour. And I was so annoyed knitting this cardigan. Like, everything just annoyed me. It was like, I was so childish. I just always felt so annoyed. And it was the colour. Could not stand this colour. And then when the cardigan went wrong, other things have gone wrong in my knitting, and it has not bothered me to the extent that that did. And then I sewed up this garment with a bunch of scraps, and although the colours are fine individually, together they make me feel so annoyed, so frustrated at like life in general. I look at it and I'm like, which is really silly, and I don't know why, but I will show it to you. I'll try and show it to you on. It's just there's a lack of space for me to actually fit into this camera shot, but I'll try. But yeah, I'll be back. Ta-da! It actually ends there. I kind of hate it. I know it doesn't actually matter. Like, the whole point of me making this was to practice. This is my my facing that won't stay in. The whole point was to practice. Like, I wanted to learn how to do these like applique style sewing things, and this isn't just one piece. It's a whole load of my scraps that I put together and sewed together, and then these are all sewn on individually, these panels. These took me forever to understand the pattern. It's ridiculously embarrassing to how long it took me to understand how to attach this, because it was attached flat before you seamed up the side. The back is also scraps. It did actually originally end here, and I was going to add on the bottom some scraps of this pink fabric from a dress that I cut up. But I think it's this colour. This colour, I don't like it combined with this. I think it looks horrible with my face, my skin tone. I don't know. I just hate it. There's a woman called Thread and Sprout, I think. I'll link her below. And she makes the most amazing clothes. And I've tried twice now to make these boxy, big t-shirts with linen, and I don't suit them at all. I am such a small person. It's like it drowns me. The fabric is just too much for my body, which is really horrible because I love her style. I love everything that she's making, the skirts, the dresses, the pants, the tops. It looks so nice. And then whenever I try to make these oversized boxy tops, I look and feel rubbish. And that's kind of not what you want to do when you're making your own clothes and then wearing them. You want to feel good. And I just don't. I'm thinking it could be, oh, let's try and get some more space. Actually, I'm wearing a dress of the same colour, so you can't actually see where it ends. But it could be a pyjama top. It's very like 1980s. It reminds me of when I went to like McDonald's as a child, which I would never do now. But as a child, I went to McDonald's, and I don't know, there's nothing McDonald's about it, but it just gives me these vibes, and I don't love it. And honestly, I spent about 10 to 12 hours sewing this, because I was trying to learn different techniques, and the inside is all like patchworked together using my overlocker. So that was the purpose, like theoretically, I did everything I wanted to. I patchworked some scraps together, I practiced on my overlocker, I learnt this technique, I learnt a new sleeve technique, I made the side, like the shaped, oversized, boxy t-shirt that I wanted. Theoretically it all works, but yeah, I don't really know what to do with it now. I don't like having things in my wardrobe that I won't wear, so I don't know. Maybe if this was all in more muted, like this colour, this is basically my colour scheme, is this sagey green, beechwood white, like dusty pink. They're my colours. So I don't know what I was thinking when I put this together, thinking it would work, but hey ho. That's what happens sometimes. So in multiple ways, it's a win. It's just that the end result wasn't quite what I wanted. But that is how we live and learn, I suppose. I don't have any more scraps. I definitely don't have any scraps in the colours that I would actually wear, and I would need to buy full meters of it to have scraps. But that is my plan for the future sewing makes, that I'll make more linen clothing because I really enjoy wearing it. The only issue I have with the current, like this dress that I'm wearing now underneath this, is possibly me, because I self-drafted the pattern, or possibly that the fabric's more drapey, more ease, like it stretches a little bit more when I'm sewing, so the sleeves on the dress under here fall off. They needed to be a lot more closer into my neck. So I'm going to try and remake this dress, but I'll still wear this one because it's really nice and comfortable. And yeah, then I'll have some scraps left over, but possibly not to make oversized boxy tops because they're just not my style. Anything else to say? I don't think so. Hello, someone's messaging me. I am currently waiting on the post because I'm getting a new iron. It's taken me so long. If you watched my Vlogmas, you'll know that I was struggling to find an iron. And it's so, like, there are so many problems in the world, and getting a new iron should not be one of them. I was so overwhelmed with the information. I didn't know what I needed. I got so stressed about it. But then a couple of days ago, I was like, that's it! I'm just gonna get the first one that's on offer. And I went on Amazon and I was like, yep, click, that's fine, done. So now my new iron should be coming today. And then I can sew up some more. I've got a dress that I need to rescue. Oh, I can show you that one quickly. This was an attempt. I won't show you in great depth, but next time when I fixed it, I went on, let's start again. As you know from this story, I wanted to make this boxy tee style dress, and I thought this linen that I got on sale last year or the year before, that would be perfect. Thing is, and I don't want to sound like gross, but it does sound gross, it just looks like baby poo. Like the colour. I don't know how to explain it in any other way. It's just like this unpleasing colour. But I think it's just enhanced by my skin tone. They don't mix. If I had really dark, maybe olive skin or like dark skin, it would look really good. But not on my skin tone. It just washes me out. It's unpleasant. I can't remember the pattern I used, but originally I made it and I couldn't get my head, like I made the whole dress and then I couldn't get my head through the hole. So then I had to try and cut into the fabric and make a bigger neckline, and it just looks horrendous. And I don't know how people do these thrift flips, because whenever I try to fix something that's already in a garment form, it does not work. So my sleeves and my neckline just went all over the show. But the problem is, I look a little bit like I feel like everything I'm saying sounds super controversial. It's not actually supposed to. But you know when you put stuff on the internet, suddenly it's opening it up to misinterpretation. But you know, like hospital gowns. This reminds me of a hospital gown. When I'm wearing it, it's obviously really crinkled, obviously really big. The bottom part's really nice. Like, it's just a flowy long skirt, but this top part looks so bad on me. And it is to the measurements for my size, for this oversize. But as you can see, yeah, boxy and me, we don't go together. And although it's really comfortable, it looks just terrible. So I'm going to take this out. Originally, I was practicing this top to be the replacement top for this, but I'm scrapping that idea due to the situation. So I'm going to add, I think, the rear top bodice that I've used in my favourite dresses. So then I know that I'll wear it, and then I can put cardigans and jumpers over it and it'll take away from this colour against my skin. Because I could make it into a skirt, but I very rarely wear skirts. I prefer to throw on a dress and put a t-shirt on or under or over it. So that's what I'm going to do, and I can play with my overlocker again. That's the plan for when my new iron comes. Okay, that's it. End of the show. I hope that I explained things well enough for you to know what I'm talking about. And next time I'll either post, depending what gets finished first, I'll either post a new regular podcast, or I'll do a catch up on my knitting, how much yarn I got through in January. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I am doing trying to get through a bit of my yarn stash, and I just posted a post on YouTube about that and my plans, and that I want to keep updating each month how much yarn goes in and out of my stash. And also I have my vintage project video to come, but yeah, who knows when I'll finish that. So Emily, stop rambling. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!